But did
And
it have to be that way?
God put the devil on earth. The devil rules over this world.
Yeah, but why put the devil there? See, these are the big issues. Is like, why put the devil there? God is omniscient and omnipotent, so it could have done it another way, but
Mhm.
God chose not to do it this way, which doesn't really keep in line with omnibenevolence, all loving and all good. Because if an omnipotent and omnibenevolent being
Mhm.
would, by definition of that, be kind of stuck in doing the best possible option for anything, because it will always be the option it takes will always be in the best interest of everything around it, because it's omnibenevolent. And if it's, there's many things we could say don't really fall in line with this. For example, putting the devil on earth would not be omnibenevolent if the lessons that could be learned from putting the devil on earth could be learned in a more positive way that doesn't result in unnecessary suffering and pain and death, right? So So you see the issue that we run into this, because the all knowing, all powerful entity would recognize that we would recognize this. It would know it because it's omniscient, and would recognize it's like, oh, so I know that I'm creating all this. So in the future, I know that humans are going to look at this world and realize that, and they're going to realize that it could have been done in a better way, in a more positive way, but yet it didn't do that.
Yeah, and that's just how it was. We have to deal with that. We have to, every single day, we go through a spiritual warfare. We have a devil and an angel on our shoulder, and our consciousness is God telling us what is right and what's wrong. And we have to listen to the voice that is leading us in the right direction.
So, but I mean, doesn't the idea I mean, obviously the situation that we're in pretty much shuts down the idea that God is all loving, because an omnibenevolent entity wouldn't set up the system like this. It wouldn't need to, because it's all powerful. It could do it in a more positive way that didn't result in these things.
Yeah.
So we either God. So the conclusion off of all of this, by asking these, the conclusion is that if we get our information about God through the Bible, through the
Mhm.
supposedly divinely inspired word of the Bible,
Mhm.
then there's three conclusions we can come to. Either one, God is incapable of communicating with us to a degree that we can understand, and we got the attributes wrong. Or two, God misrepresented himself in the Bible, and he doesn't actually hold these attributes, but because it came through the Bible, he wants us to think that they do. Because if we think that they do, that kind of behooves him, because he wants us to love him and have a relationship with him. So, yeah, so God could misrepresent himself. Or three, it doesn't exist, and human beings made it all up as a means of maintaining order in societies. As societies got larger and larger, more mouths, more voices, more ideas, chaos can kind of come from that. So to kind of implement order, authorities would do this. The authoritative figures would do this. And given what we observe about the world and observe about history and the evidence at hand, it seems like it susses out that the third is the most likely. And the second one would be that it's a malevolent God.
Yeah, God is Jesus, and he is with everyone. He's with everyone every part of the day. And all people have to do is pray to Jesus every day, and he will answer them.
Well, I did. My prayers were never answered.
What did you pray for?
It
How did
would.
you?
Whatever and everything. It was either the safety of people, or the strength to deal with a particular situation, or all things. When I was coming up, because I was born and raised in the faith. I was born and raised
Mhm.
Methodist, and
Okay.
so and whatever, acceptance of other people for who I was, for the strength to deal with adversity, or issues when I was younger. And it was small little details, small little things that didn't add up, little illogical situations. It was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Where I started asking questions, and then realized that the answers that I was kind of getting, because not a lot of people wanted it, because I found what I discovered is that, one, not a lot of people in the faith want to answer these questions. They don't even want to ask them. And that's problematic. It's like, why refuse to ask the question? Because if we're talking about the ultimate truth thing here, then it should be good that we ask questions. Because I
mm,
mean, otherwise, why would God create it this way with with the desire to ask these questions and figure things out? But they didn't want to ask questions because the more you ask questions, the more you begin to realize that it starts to fall apart and it
not
just doesn't hold
always.
water.
When I ask my pastor questions, he sits down and talks with me. He could talk with me for an hour just answering one of my questions. He would bring up multiple scriptures and get really down into detail. So I'm sorry that your pastors didn't answer your questions
Oh,
correctly.
I actually still have a fantastic relationship with my former pastor. Pastor Jack and I still chat, but because in really he's a pastor, he's a Methodist pastor, but he's really more of a philosopher. And occasionally, when I run into philosophical things that I need kind of explained or I need to suss something out, I'll talk to him. Hell,
Okay.
he officiated my wedding.
All right.
He officiated over my father's memorial service. But he knows I'm an atheist, but it
Yeah.
was just a matter of my mother really really wanted my wedding to be Methodist, and my wife didn't have a problem with it, and I was like, I don't care.
Mm,
So I did that. But he's been a positive influence in my life, just as a place of support, but not as a place of like trying to connect to a God that I don't believe in. And he
mhm.
understands that, and he knows that I've come to my conclusions rationally and honestly, that this is where the evidence is led, and that I don't, the whole faith train, because faith is emotionally based and faith can be manipulated by external sources, and your faith could be manipulated without you even knowing it. This is how we get cults and stuff, and faith, the belief in things unseen, if you want to go with the Hebrews version. But in that respect, I realized that it's not a good tool to use to get to the truth.
Yes. So to get to the truth, we have to go directly to the source,
Hmm.
and that is by prayer, repeating prayer every single day.
But if you do that, how do you know it's not you getting what you need, like just essentially you fulfilling what you need? And how do you know it's something external to you?
Because you will literally hear the voice of God in your head.
But can you eliminate the possibility that it's not just you talking to yourself?
You will hear it. You won't hear your voice in your head. You will hear a different voice in your head. And it
Well,
will be a strong, powerful voice. And it will lead you in the right direction once you hear it. So, when is the last time you prayed?
oh, I couldn't. Probably I was 13.
Yeah, it's been a long
Yeah.
time, man.
Well, I
So,
haven't needed to. My
mm,
life demonstrably got better when I deconverted. Like
mhm,
demonstrably, things made more sense. The world made sense. Life and
mhm,
death made sense. Loss makes sense. Suffering makes sense. All of the things we deal with, all the puzzle, the pieces fell into place, and there was no
mhm.
mystery anymore.
Yeah,
So, with no mystery, there's no need to pray.
yeah.
And prayer always felt kind of, even though I use it, when I was a believer, prayer always felt very, what's the word? Prayer always felt very arrogant, because how dare I ask, when I was a believer, how dare I ask of the supreme being, who is all knowledgeable, who has all knowledge and is all powerful, that he got something wrong. Is like, I didn't get the strength I need, so I need to ask you for the strength. But he already knows that, and he knows I'm going to ask for it, so he obviously gave me the strength that I needed at the time. But why am I praying? You see what I'm saying? How
yeah.
it
So, he wants to hear from you because he knows exactly how you're feeling right now. He's looking down on your life and he's just nodding his head because it's all part of his plan.
So it's part of his plan that I would go to hell and not go to heaven.
It's part of his plan that you would lose your faith like you did. He knew it would happen. And he put your pastor Jack into your life because he he sends other people through his spirit to work with you and to show God's love through other people.
But Jack doesn't show me God's love. Jack is just a really really smart guy who's more. He's like almost 80 years old, so he's just more well read than I am. He's a good resource and a friendly guy and a
Mhm.
nice guy to talk to. He's just a generally nice person, and I
Okay.
he's one of many resources I have when I talk about when getting into either philosophy or something of that nature. But
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't. That's why I was like that. If it's part of God's plan, then God's
Hmm.
intention is for me to not go to heaven.
No, his intention for you is to find God again on your own, because I found God by myself.
But didn't
No
you?
one taught me about it.
But didn't you need to find God though? Oh no, you were taught about it though. You were raised in a Christian household, so you already
I
had awareness of it,
I
right?
had awareness of it, but I was very close to just being a downright criminal, the things I was doing.
True, but we spoke about that before. The utility of it. It does have a utility for you, but just because it has a utility, does that make it true?
It makes it true when you hear God's voice every single day. And when you pray every single day, your prayers get answered. All of my prayers have been answered.
Apart from children starving to death in throughout Africa who are all Catholics. They all
Well,
believe as strongly as you do, but God doesn't answer their prayers as they starve to death by the tens of thousands.
yeah, and when they starve to death, they go automatically to heaven.
You got to recognize that that's pretty brutal. Starving to death is a horrible, horrific way to die.
I mean,
He,
Jesus died worse.
well, Jesus died in a day. Starving to death takes weeks.
Okay. There was
That's
more
it's
pain
well,
with Jesus.
given I've seen starvation up close, malnutrition and death by
Yeah,
this, and
I've seen all the pictures, videos, I know about it. So you're concerned with that. You have money, you can fly to a country. There are billionaires living in our country.
mhm,
Why aren't they doing anything? Hmm?
because they don't feel a need to.
Exactly. So why aren't you doing anything?
Well, I really I like the mean. I have enough. The means I have is enough to support my life, to
Hmm.
feed myself, put a roof over my head, take care of my dogs,
Yeah,
pay my bills.
yeah. So
Yeah,
that's how everyone thinks. That's why we have people starving, is because we're all selfish.
but it doesn't have to be that way. God can make it different.
Yes, he can, and I'm sure he blesses people. I talked to this group. His name is Mogumba, and he's an African tribe, and I send him money once in a while. So I'm doing my part.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, it goes back to it. So God answers your prayers, but not all of these children's prayers.
God answers all prayers, you know, and it's a sad thing that people are starving on earth. But as soon as they die, they're in heaven for eternity where there is no suffering, no pain, no hate, and there's unlimited food.
What?
It's literally all paradise in heaven.
But we talked about but there's a logical contradiction there with the idea of heaven.
And what is that?
Do we have free will in heaven?
We have free will to do anything in heaven, but we won't have the earthly desires to want to do bad in heaven.
Well, I don't have any desires to do bad here. I mean, here on Earth.
Then you shouldn't want to do anything bad in heaven. That's just how it is.
Well, what are we determining to be bad? Are we determining what God determines to be sin, or what we determine to be bad?
Anything just disrespectful, like you wouldn't light up a cigarette in heaven. It's not like that.
So
It's
smoking a cigarette is bad? Because I'm a smoker, and if I can't smoke in
yeah.
heaven, I'm gonna be pissed.
But if you go to heaven, you won't have the addiction, the feeling that you need a cigarette anymore.
Ah, well, let's think about it like this: if your position is correct, and I'm going to hell, so why would? But my mother would go to heaven because she's a devout believer. Why would he do that? Why would God do that to my mother?
Now we gotta do what?
That she would never see me again, ever.
See, if people go to hell, it's by their own choice.
Yeah, but it's also a punishment to my mother as well because my mother will never see me again, unless of course she simply won't be aware that I'm not there.
Well, I'm
because that
sure your
would be,
mother.
because her without her boys, her without her sons, me and my brother, her without us would be hell
Yeah,
for her.
I'm sure it would. And do you want your mom to be alone in heaven?
I don't believe that there is a heaven. I believe when we die, we die. That's it. Done.
Okay, and I'm sure she's talked to you about religion, right? Does she know
She
you're an atheist?
yeah, of course she does.
Okay, and that probably breaks her heart.